Restating their name.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everybody to the Selectmen's meeting for April 12th. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Just two of people in the office.
Okay, so don't have to announce any names. Okay. In the signature folder, I make a motion to approve the minutes from April 5th.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye. And then we had a solar energy exemption. I didn't see that. Did you?
No. A solar.
I didn't see it in there.
Yes. Was it? I thought.
We signed it.
Yeah.
That was solar energy?
Yeah, you have to look and see what's checked off.
Oh, I thought it was.
Yeah.
Veterans. Okay.
It's all the same form.
Then we had a change to put piece of land in current use. 4 personal actions, I believe. And an appointment for a deputy forest fire warden. I make a motion to approve the manifest of $12,586.17.
Second.
We move in second, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And in the mail folder, we had a letter from, copy of a letter from Ida Cobb regarding PSNH Eversource abatement request. An update on the NRRA annual renewal and the quarterly action ambulance report for the first quarter. And now we got the administrator's report.
Let's see, last week I reached out to John Hatch for a new agreement for Action Ambulance because the old contract does not have the amount that was negotiated. So I asked him if he could please update that contract, because one of the things the auditors will do is they'll ask for a contract and look at the invoices compared to the contract. And without having any record of what was agreed on, I just wanted to make sure all our I's are dotted, T's are crossed. So I'm still waiting for that from him. Tim Green, our auditor, sent me the list of what's required for the audit, which is scheduled for May 11th at this point. And I have given the treasurer her list of what's needed and town clerk her list, so I have to reach out to the library and the trustees of the trust funds. Those are my 2 next ones. Let's see, and we're trying to get the certificates that are given to the 6th graders. For fairly inexpensive, we can have either Minuteman print paper that has the town emblem on it and just makes it look a little fancier. We were requested, the selectmen were requested to attend on June 20th.
At 6 p.m.
I believe it was 6, yeah, to present the certificates. And she's gonna make more room for you guys to sign them this year. Let's see. Can you take the changing table for the library when you leave today?
Oh, we found it.
Oh, no,
I was supposed to pick it up a couple weeks ago.
You found one?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, because I just ordered it, just came in, so you couldn't have gotten it.
Do we have Randy or somebody can put it up, or do we need to get somebody to put it
Randy's still open to it depending on the job, so I think that's when you can handle it. Yeah. Okay, and then several of the other things we're gonna be talking about on your agenda items, so. I'll wait till then.
Okay. Vicky, you have anything?
Not the moment.
Not at the moment.
Yeah.
Chuck?
The note from Chris Garcia regarding the signage on the utility poles, do we do anything about that? Do we notify the utility company or take them down because they're in the right of way or?
Yes,
Nothing is supposed to be on the pole. So anybody that goes to that pole that has to work there has the right to take them off.
But do we
can the
do
town
that?
take them off?
They do that.
They do that, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we are responsible.
No.
How big a sign?
It's good.
No, I'm saying, so at some point, we gotta look at, is that a general sign area for everybody to just put up signs for free, or are they gonna landowner permission, or?
We do it for community, not on the pole, but
They're illegal. Nothing's supposed to be on any pole whatsoever.
But even if they put it beside it, I mean, if it's a 4 foot by 3 foot sign on the side of it, it's just stuffed in the ground, or that's something
Do we have a sign ordinance?
we do, but I don't remember that it addresses that kind of an issue.
We do have a sign ordinance, and I think that is addressed.
Okay.
So are you talking at the end of Elm and Green Mountain?
Yeah.
So my understanding is if it's on the pole, it's illegal. If it's not on the pole, then it gets short, or the property owner's permission. But then there's a setback from the road thing too, so I don't know, I can't speak to that, but pole illegal, property landowner permission otherwise.
Yeah,
What?
can you say his name?
John Davis.
John Davis, 669 Townhouse Road.
Thank you.
yeah, we need it for the minutes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, I thought you knew him.
Well, doesn't matter.
Yeah, well,
Assuming they know.
Yeah.
There's nobody on Zoom.
Second item, the road that I did for the RPC traffic study, I drove Green Mountain, Pine River, Elm Street Townhouse, and I noted some mailbox numbers, or between some mailbox numbers where I think the location of the survey should be. I don't know if you guys want to go out and just drive that to confirm it or not, I think it'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
And if you're agreeable with it, then you can give it to Audrey and let her submit that over.
I can do that when I'm going to look for class 6 road signs. See how many are.
All right, I traded a couple of different phone calls with Jeff Libby, the town forester, yesterday regarding the timber that could be provided for the power post beetle repair work at the library. He's recommending a different process than the one that we thought we'd like to use, and I understand why he proposed it. There is gonna be a town cut that's already scheduled for sometime in the beginning of June up near the Woodland Cemetery on Hobby Road. He believes, well, he told me there's more than enough lumber there to cover the needs for this particular project. The issue is money. Originally, we were doing a swap for services and a swap for products, and we didn't have to worry about funding anything. And the way Jeff is proposing it, the revenue from the timber cut will come to the town, but it has to go into the general fund. We will have to pay to have the logs sawed and milled and the flooring kiln dried. So I'm trying to determine what a price tag is for that right now, because they're gonna try to figure out how to pay for it. If it's gonna come out of our operating budget if we do it, if not, we'll do something different. So the money that we had allocated at town meeting is less than a third of what is needed for the entire project. And I was going to use the basis of that money for L-chip grant, where we can get 100% match. If we end up having to dip into that and use it to pay for Sawyer fees, we will not be able to use that as part of the L-chip application. So it would be a straight cost with no match. So I'm doing more homework on that one, and I should have an update next week.
Chuck, if I may, John Davis. I have access to a few sawyers that could quote that, and kiln drying if you need it, and shaping for that matter.
We will. We talked to Leo Racine and I drove down and talked to Timber Doodle. They're a mill down in Rochester,
Yeah.
Middleton area.
Yeah.
And the guy can do all of it. He's a small mill, and he was willing to do swap for services kind of thing, but Jeff doesn't want to go that route, I understand why.
I do.
It just now presents an issue that we're gonna figure out how to pay for the milling and the planning.
If I can help in any way, let me know, and I'll get
Okay,
you some numbers.
Your name has now been added to that list, John. Thank you. Got it. The transfer station with the look that was done yesterday. I'd like to propose taking a look at forming a subcommittee of the select board to look at a longer term strategy for improvements to the transfer station. There is the availability of a $50,000 grant out there that's a matching grant. And at the end of this year, we will have over $50,000 in the special reserve fund, which can only be expended on the transfer station. So if we had a little bit better plan, we could actually apply for the grant and potentially do $100,000 or so of work next year on any kind of phase and any kind of strategy. I'd be more than happy to serve on that. Leo Steen has agreed he would serve on it. I think we would actually need another 4 or 5 citizens to volunteer to be part of that. Because it'll be driving around, taking a look at some of the transfer stations around us and what they're offering, getting waste management up here to meet with us, getting an RRA in here to meet with us, and then figuring out what we do. It'll take several months, but it could be ready for next year's time.
Okay, I'd be on. You want to be on
Not at this moment.
it? You'd be in the transfer station rep, you know, if you want to
I know what
Sit
you're
in on it.
saying.
sit in on it. So,
You don't necessarily have to lead the whole thing, Vicky. I'll help with that. So, but being a participant for just knowing what's going on is probably the important piece.
now we can talk about that.
Well, I want to talk about it before we go spend money pouring concrete pads, because I want to make sure that what we're looking at spending money on right now is a long-term solution, not something that a year from now we're going to look at taking out part of it. And changing it.
I don't think we'll have to take concrete out. If anything, it would be concrete, more concrete poured around.
We don't know what the design is. There could be a better design to lay that whole
Yeah.
thing out relative to dumpsters, so we're not.
So basically, what you're saying is hold up even doing what needs to be done, right?
We need to do
Because
something
we
with
need
gravel.
plans.
We need to do something with gravel no matter what, because of the.
Well, we've already paid for the 2 concrete pads, one of the dumpsters.
Yeah, but I'm looking at it right now going like, okay, so let's just spend $5 grand. If it works, great. If not, we throw it away. I'm not really interested in throwing it away. It's not the best interest of the entire town for us to basically not look at a bigger solution to make
Which
sure that
takes
what
more
we're
time,
doing.
right?
It'll take more time.
Yeah.
We're still
so-
gonna have to fill in under the, level in underneath the dumpster. We'll have to level the ground up. So no about that.
Which is gonna dig it up again, right? Because you
Correct.
don't have cement, anything to prevent it from, to continue happening.
Yep, but that's a whole lot cheaper than spending $5 grand. Getting him over there, even if he's gotta do it once a month for the next year, it's a lot cheaper than $5 grand.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't agree with that. I mean,
You're bringing over a backhoe. You're filling in a hole. Let's call it 3 hours round trip time at Ron's rate. That is cheaper if we do it every single month.
but it don't fix the problem.
The problem, by fixing it right now, means it's a temporary fix.
I don't agree with that.
Okay. You don't know what this
There's not much temporary about concrete.
is true, but from a design standpoint, there is no design for a long-term solution for that station.
No, but we can pour the pads, fix the problem, and then do this study and make a long term.
Okay, spend the $5 grand on it.
We've already done it. Chuck.
We did sign it.
Yeah.
But thinking about it since we signed it, it's not necessarily a good solution. It's a temporary fix, and as long as we're willing to throw the money at the temporary fix, great.
Well, Daily Road was temporary fix.
Um,
What that is,
we have a long-term plan for that one, so,
Yeah,
so we
now we
have,
do, but
we were working on it at the
we couldn't
time.
put it off, so. I don't agree.
Well, I'm just putting it on tape that I don't think it's a currently a valuable way of doing it, but if that's the decision, it's the decision. I'll go with it.
I have a problem with doing a long-term solution on it, design.
As long as everybody's aware that we could be spending money and wasting money, as long as we're in agreement that we're willing to spend the $5 grand or $6 grand, whatever it is, and potentially it could be throwaway money. As long as everybody's aware of that, and makes a decision, it's a good decision.
Well, it gets us out of the woods. I mean, there's no guarantee we're gonna get that grant, so that
There's
the
no guarantee
$100,000 may not even happen for
Yeah.
a couple, 3 years. So,
I agree with just doing what needs to be done right now and long-term, we'll
Okay,
work on it.
good.
That's what I-
I'm good with it, as long as the discussion, that's really what I was after having a discussion for.
Okay.
And that's it, totally right.
okay, just so everybody knows, we got a 9:30 non-public with the police department, but it shouldn't take too long, so if you wanna hang around. We met yesterday on Green Mountain Road, with Ron and the paving contractor. And Ron said that maybe getting some trees taken out and clearing some of the stuff that's overhanging. Do you want me to get a hold of Dale Smith to see what he'd give us for a price?
And you got it, we used locally last year.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't see.
I mean, that where tree where we were standing needs to come down.
You don't walk, you drive it with him, just to get an idea of what needs to come down.
Yeah, get a price.
Yeah.
So I'll do that.
I apologize, who are you gonna call for the trees?
Dale Smith,
Gail, thank you. Shouldn't that go out to bid, like get 3 bids on that and see who's
it won't
cheaper?
be over $15,000. And that's where.
Oh, so we have a cap and then okay,
Yeah, we set money aside for mowing and road clearing, so that'll come out of that.
And he's also an existing contractor, we've been using, he's doing a great job, so. It's kind of proven experience.
We saw Patty this morning, so we're all set on the 22nd as far as picking the bags up. And what are we we mentioned about the civic awards. Is that something we're still gonna do for last year? I know COVID kind of threw it under the bus.
I said I would look and see what NH had, but yeah, I don't know how you did it before. It hasn't been done since I was here, so,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
whatever guidance you give me, I'll follow through.
the way it was done before, I didn't agree with, but that's the way it was done. All the boards voted. So,
So you wanna do a public vote? You want me to put out a? I have connections in other towns who have done it, and they would do the presentation at, a festival in the town, that drew a lot of people. So I don't know, when do you normally present it to people?
well, I don't know, when was it?
We actually, when I first came on, the first couple of years, it was all done in the fall. Plaques were prepared and they were presented at the town meeting.
Okay,
The ones I remember, we had like a little dinner or something at school and they were presented then.
I mean,
That was before you.
anyway, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
recognition's the important part.
right.
I
Okay,
know if we did it townwide, which would probably be the best solution, would have to set a pretty short time limit,
yes, of course,
so we
Yeah.
get the plaques and
right,
the little name plates for the plaque. All right, we can talk about that.
all right, I'll brainstorm.
Yeah, check with other towns, see what they do.
Okay.
The street fair. Does Any of you two, either of you two have any problem with closing the road off? Like
Yeah.
they've done in the past,
Yeah, I have no problem with it.
right?
I think we need something good going on.
Yeah,
Who does the street fair?
well, everybody,
Yeah.
fire department
I have a
has
paper.
something, the Preservation Society, Historical Society,
Nice.
library usually has a book sale. Masonic Temple's open. This is a good afternoon, that part of the day, so.
And that's August 20th.
And are you two agreeable with the budget committee schedule?
Yes.
Okay, we'll adopt that.
Yeah, I'll just point out to you, Lenny, Dave Strauss, Jack Russell, that Audrey and I, the dates under the budget committee. I know you and I had discussed about doing off by weeks.
Yeah.
Select board, that's the way we laid it out, it pretty much carries through for the first 4 meetings, and 1-3 is when it starts, so far as with what you have.
Okay,
So, I mean, it's just a nonprofit, we couldn't really do that on the same night as the select board. We had to do that on an off night because you guys are with us.
Yeah.
So that's why you'll see, I know Vicky, you're on the budget committee, that most of the beginning is gonna be on the off week. Just until we get a handle on how
Right.
long your meetings go and go from
so
there.
there'll be a couple on Wednesday, not Tuesday,
Every one on the Wednesday.
and then public hearing is gonna be on Wednesday also.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you can make a motion to approve that, and then I'll put it before the budget committee at the
Make a
next
motion
meeting.
to approve that schedule.
Yes, as written.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you.
What else is in this pile?
Did you want me to go over the financial worksheets I handed out last week? Did y'all bring yours?
So, it's in a different pile, hold on.
Oh, boy.
Okay,
What I attempted to do in March and I followed it into April, hoping it's helpful for you, is giving you the bank balances. And there's another sheet that shows you how much is in each account. So the operating general account basically has 2,000,000 in it, 2,019,588. And then I included other funds that we anticipate getting in this year. Things like rescinding the accounts at town meeting, town clerk revenue from registering vehicles, the remainder of the ARPA funds. And I did these numbers conservatively. So for example, on the money from the state, the highway block, the meals and rooms, I only estimated half of what we got last year. We know they're gonna be reduced, but we don't know by what. And then I put in the 2021 tax amount. We know, of course, it might be higher because the school's going up. So that's like a moving target. And last year we had 92.8% paid of the June taxes and 77.7% of the December taxes. So those are the percentages I put in to come up with an estimated cash remaining coming into the town of 6.4 million. I'm sorry, cash coming in at 4.4 plus the existing 2 for a total of 6.4. And then I did an estimate of the remaining expenses for the town. And they're pretty straightforward based on the operating budget and everything that was voted at town meeting for expendable trust funds, capital reserves, and the major projects for Green Mountain and Bailey Road. So that came up with municipal expenditures of 2.9. I added in 2.2 of the school, and we have approximately 5.2 million in expenses compared to the estimated 6.4 in cash and revenue. So your remaining cash should be approximately 1.1 million. The state asks for a minimum of 5% to be kept in the unassigned fund balance, a maximum of 17. 17 would be almost 1.1 million. So you're right at that top level right now. But they're a moving target, so I do have a what if we didn't get in as much tax revenue, for example. We may get in more meals and rooms. Deanna, people might buy a lot more boats or things that get registered. So these will vary, and I thought it might be helpful to continue this on a monthly basis. But what I would like from you is your input if you think other things or more detailed things would be helpful. And I can let you know as they fall off. For example, when we get the highway block grant, you'll see that get reduced and the money in the bank go up. So I'll let you know those things as we go along. Then one sheet is just the bank balances, and I went over the outstanding taxes for 2021 last week. I also provided you with a budget actual. This one was for the end of March. And Darlene and I have made some corrections to it. For example, the dog officer, we reversed a couple numbers there where the animal control officer has a salary of 5,200 and the equipment is 500. We decreased the Green Mountain Road to 500 because 150 of that is actually in the encumbrances, so we had double counted that. So in the future, when we provide you with this, if we'll provide it ahead of time, and if you want to come in with questions, that'll be great.
That'd be good.
Yeah, we cleaned up the money under the encumbrances because that's HEB and should be under Bailey Road.
It should not, none of that has been billed to us prior to the town meeting should be under Bailey Road. That goes under contracted services. Everything from the town meeting forward that HEB sends in comes out as part of that warrant.
10,000 of it is from the encumbered funds. So you're saying the balance of that would be contracted services.
The encumbered funds happen before the warrant article. The services that they built for December, January, February, March before the warrant article, so all of those have to be part of contracted services.
Even though it's only $10,000.
Yep, yeah, it's gonna go over, we know the number's gonna go over.
All right, perfect. I'll move it.
But once we get an additional bill in that shows the date of their work,
Mhm.
that's after the town meeting date, every one of those bills from that point forward goes underneath that warrant article.
Okay.
All right, are there any questions on that?
No.
Okay, that's all I have.
It's helpful.
Okay, good.
And you got that in Excel, so we can do kind of what if changes with percentages and dollar amounts and stuff like that.
Right, and I think it'll be super helpful when you get to where you're doing the MS4 in September, the end of August, because we'll be able to see a trend, because I'm keeping it each month in the Excel file.
We probably ought to put a disclaimer somewhere on that document that is printed and shared elsewhere, that these are all estimates,
Mhm.
subject to change. It's a working document.
Okay. On the BOS rules of procedure, I'm not finished typing them yet, so hopefully you'll get that next week.
Okay.
I made good progress, but not there yet.
Any update on the boil permit?
I'm gonna have a work session with.
Okay.
Can you mention about the revision dates and prior dates?
Revision dates,
Yeah,
last week, the new prices.
no. When anyone,
Well, that was under rules of procedure, so
okay.
you can mention it, go ahead.
Yeah, I've noticed that there's been a lot of changes on different stuff that comes in. And it's not necessarily a revised date, so then you look at them, and you go, oh, which one was done previous and which one is the most recent? And we always have to go and look back and find out which is which. So we're asking when anyone contracts, whatever, put something in, that they put the revision date and by who made the revision date, like the work sessions or whatever, that is brought into the selectmen or into contracts for auditing. So we can keep track of what's been changed since each one.
Under that same topic, under the BOS rules of procedure, approving manifests, I talked to the treasurer last Tuesday. She did have some concerns about signing the manifest and changing, not changing the pay date to Friday in case she can't get here or it's not ready when she gets here. And I gave you the RSA that says that you can come in and sign the manifest ahead of time and then say in your meeting.
Separately.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that is a possibility, and that's good to know, because even if one of you are traveling or have to be out for some reason, you can come in and review the manifest.
Mhm.
And since you're not meeting till the afternoon, we usually have it done mid-afternoon on Monday, so that would give you some time.
And if she has a problem, she has a deputy, right?
So
You saying?
he has filled in before, yeah, when
Yeah. So.
the meetings
if-
have moved to Wednesdays, yeah. So I just wanted you to know, because she said she was gonna write to you all, I wanted you to know that there are options.
I haven't received anything. One announcement to make, transfer station be closed Sunday, Easter Sunday, so everybody get there Saturday. Wednesday, the following Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
Or tomorrow, but they'll be closed Sunday. Yeah, I see the chief is here, so 9:30. I'll make a motion on non-public.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Alright.
Aye.
10 minutes, maybe?
Not any-
Not even 10 minutes.
What's that?
It may be.
No, go for it, see, go for it. Anyway, we'll just like it. Oh, yeah.
Oh, geez.
Come have a seat.
Do you see a need to see the minutes? You? No, okay. So we're back public session. Hey, you're up.
Okay. Yeah, get up here so Vicky can hear me too. Okay. So what I'm here to present is my efforts to bring forth errors from our assessment company that, in my opinion, have caused me personal harm and also brought to light the additional assessment company issues. I'm asking for you to consider a good cause shown for RSA 7616 by making a motion to grant me an abatement for all my harassment. In 2018, I had noted wide swings in the sold assessments were happening, and this continued into 2019. Knowing this directly affected the town budget and school formula, I brought up my concerns to the then Board of Selectmen. In August of 2019, the Select Board Chair and I went to Avatar in Chichester to ensure the concerns that we had were addressed. I presented in that meeting in 2018 sold properties, which there were 41, were about 50% incorrectly assessed, 25 to 94% over, and 24 to 168% under. Also, I presented that the 2019 sold properties to that date, which there were 30, were 80% incorrectly assessed, 30% to 2,215 over, and 30% to 100% under. So there were wide swings in our assessment, and that's what we were trying to point out before we started into the 2020 assessment. Then in late September 2019, the preliminary assessment was issued, and I noticed an English campground was preliminary assessed over 1 million less than it had sold. Now, this is the preliminary assessment they put out in the beginning. And the High Watch Rehab Center was preliminary assessed less than the previous year's assessment when it had sold over 3 million more than it was assessed. So I contacted the then Select Board Chair, and he contacted Avatar, and they ended up fixing that before they did the final assessment, which was about a $3 million swing. That's a major error, in my opinion, by our assessment company. Being vocal of the errors at the Select Board work sessions during this time frames and their meetings, it's my opinion that my dissatisfaction and push for the bidding, the contract was relayed to Avatar. And it's my opinion, due to those efforts, Avatar started the harassment by incorrectly assessing my property. And I want to give you a snapshot of that harassment and what happened. In 2015, Avatar assigned my property panoramic and extreme distance. Now, those are view categories that's done by a measurement, right out of the assessor's book that they're required to have for actual criteria to do things. It's no different than doing a house that's 48 feet, and Avatar says on your card it's 68 feet. It's an error in measurement. So width of a view is a measurement. So Avatar came back under my request in 2015 and measured my property for width. They actually came out and put a protractor on, and they changed me from panoramic to wide. So they agreed. They had made it wrong. They changed me to wide. Then they told me to file an abatement for the distance, which I did. And they actually approved that in 2016 and put me from extreme distant to distant. So now my property is sitting there from 2016 to just going into the 2020 reassessment as wide and distant, not panoramic and extreme distant. Big difference in your assessment. This is where I feel the harassment came in because of what I was trying to do in 18 and 19 and getting the contract and what I explained to you. Avatar comes back with a preliminary assessment for my property, putting me back to what it was in 2015, panoramic and extreme distance. Obviously, I haven't moved my house. The criteria in their book for 2015 and 2020, for far as their actual measurements and criteria, have not changed at all. And I presented that to the BTLA. So Avatar, I went to them and I said, what are you doing? You messed up. They basically said, we'll fix it. Then they came back and said, if you don't like it, and his exact word was, when I talked to him through our assessor, have him file an abatement. The abatement came back February 2021 and said, close enough. not by a measurement that said the house was really 48 feet instead of 68 feet, but close enough, not per their criteria. And that's exactly documented when I showed it to BTLA. In 2015 and 20, criteria are exactly the same as I stated. The BTLA heard my case on 3/22, so last March. It took that long for me to get to the BTLA to hear my case. But little did I know from the BTLA, even though I was advised by an attorney and I paid for that advice, the BTLA in that meeting expected that measurement errors or physical errors are handled at the abatement. The BTLA expects when you bring something to them, they expect it to be a valuation problem, not a measurement problem. So they required in the actual motion opinion that I have an appraisal of my property, because that's the only way they could rule on a valuation. Well, in 2020, I think we all know we were locked down. There was no way I was getting somebody in my house to do an appraisal. Just wasn't happening. Nothing was selling in the town. But BTLA said, by law, we have to require an appraisal, so we have to dismiss your case. So before you, you see a motion that the BTLA actually gave saying they dismissed my case, and the reason was because of technicality, I didn't have the appraisal. Now, my attorney and myself believe if you look at page 1, on the bottom, you're going to see the taxpayer argued, and you're going to see a parentheses 1. In that, it moves over to page 2, where you'll see 2, 3, 4, and 5. Everybody follow me on that? What my attorney and myself believe, and what we heard from the BTLA board when we presented the case, 4 and 5 is the BTLA agreeing that what we presented supported the taxpayer's contention, the value should be 96 and should be abated by 42,000. In other words, what they're saying is we should have been back to wide and distant, not panoramic and extreme distance, like they put me in 2016. I know people could read this either way, and some could say that's what the taxpayer argued, but the context of that paragraph 4 and 5, in my opinion, leaves no doubt that that's the BTLA's review of my arguments. Now, what I'd like to remind the board is RSA 1716A only requires an abatement for good cause shown, not to present evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you wish to have more, I have the full presentation that I did to the BTLA, so you can see the physical evidence, which is more than what I've just given you a snapshot of. And I'll present that to you. If not, I request that you grant my request for a motion to accept an abatement from panoramic and extreme distance to wide and distant.
Davey and I had quite a conversation over this. I kind of have to agree with him. Close enough is not a measure. It either makes it or it doesn't make it. I think he's got a legitimate argument. Why they change it just because it was close enough? I don't agree with that. I don't know how you guys feel.
If it was me, I'd agree with it.
This is, Mr. Chair, this is what I'm requesting for a motion.
I actually got one question. Looking at the copies of the document we have here, it looks like after the BTLA hearing, you've actually officially applied for a motion of rehearing, is that correct?
The attorney advised me that because 4 and 5, we believe is a summarization of my argument by the BTLA from the hearing, that I come before the board because I filed for a rehearing, which could mean it could take me another year and more legal fees. I'm already over $1,000 and survey, because I had to hire a professional survey because Avatar refused to come out and measure my property again. So I'm already over $1,000 in that amount, and I'm already obligated for attorney fees. And he felt instead of going to more attorney fees for the rehearing, attempt to do this per the 7616, see if the board would grant that, and that would save me from going into the rehearing. That would tell us to stop it if you did approve this.
And as a result of the actions you had back in the 2015-16 era, they actually did change the two components.
Oh,
down.
yeah, actually, yeah, all the way through 16, it was wide and distant. And obviously, nothing's changed my properties. I mean, most of you know my property, but the thing I wasn't aware of, and it brought to light on this in 2015, when the representative from Avatar came out and measured my property. As a matter of fact, it's the same representative who was in the BTLA meeting who measured my property, said he didn't have to now. He had said that they did a drive-by to assign me my category instead of measuring it. Only because I questioned it, he measured it. Now they don't want to measure it. So it leads me to believe, why are they not measuring these categories just like you would? Is it a 48-foot house or is it a 68-foot house? So these are some of the things that I presented in the beginning that I'm having an issue with for our assessment company. And these are the things that have been brought to light because of the hearing about the measurements. And I want you to keep that in mind because I think most of you know that I am pushing hard and working with other people to actually put out a request for bid next year like the town wanted us to do, to go out for contract. And if Avatar happens to be one of those companies that bid on this, please remember the issues we have with Avatar. We will still continue to pay for their support for fire software. That's a whole different issue. So it will not affect our tax collector. It will not affect what we have in the office. It's just the company that does the assessment.
I mean, if nothing changed, if anything, probably you will get worse as trees grow. So I just don't see Avatar's reason to put it back to where it was pre-2015. Because it's close enough, they don't cut it with me. What do you think?
I agree with you.
So if you agree, I'd request you do a motion if you would, please.
Yep, I make a motion to direct the assessor office to adjust the overall assessment for the property at 49 Jack Russell Road from year 2020 present by adjusting the view factors of panoramic to wide and extreme distance to distant. This results in an overall reduction of assessed value of $42,000 per effective year. Good cause was shown for RSA 76:16A in the form of a presentation and a BTLA decision dated 3/30/2021. I make that motion, and somebody want a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Fuller, aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And please keep in mind that as town elected officials, as we all are, that we can be manipulated certain ways. And I really believe this company is manipulating. I do. So keep that in mind if they happen to bid again. I have a lot more evidence. I don't think it's going to be needed because I don't believe that they'll even put out a bid when we put out the request for bids. At least that's what my hope is. But thank you for your consideration. I appreciate it. Ending this 2 years of harassment, which it was,
So, yeah, sorry, I had to go through that.
and a lot of money.
Sorry, I had to go through that.
No, well, thank you for hearing it.
Thank you for all the details.
And I know that you got a lot more information to prove.
You know I do.
That's not necessary right now.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment about that?
So,
We have maybe not a similar experience with them, but one equally, I think, is outrageous. we purchased our property in 2018. In 2 years after we built and moved in, our land assessment went more than 250% increase. And I called them up. I said, what's going on? We bought at fair market value. The property was on the market for years and was on the market for what we paid, or close to that, for at least a year. There were people in there, 2 other couples looking at the property the week we were there looking at it. So fair market value is supposed to be what we're going by. There had no explanation, would not even discuss with me the means in which they calculate what properties are worth. And all we got was a thing in the mail saying that it's going to stay the same. So, I just don't, I agree with David. I think when this comes up again, we should
Well,
seriously consider getting somebody else.
there you go with their attitude, filing abatement. It's basically what they told Dave.
Yeah.
They don't even want to deal with it. What else we get here? Rebecca,
She's coming right back.
oh, okay.
Come on, town hall.
Sure.
Last week, we opened up the 2 bids for the power post steel repairs for the historic town hall project at the library. As a result of looking at the results of that, the numbers being 100, 810,000 there were about 30 to 40% more than we were expecting. Supply and demand, what's going on because of COVID, I get it, the price went up. So I actually asked the board for me to go back to the architect and find out if one of the elements of that particular bid process was a requirement, which was shoring. So once they removed some of the underpinnings and structural stuff, they basically are putting up some temporary supports, so building doesn't move, floors don't move, those kinds of things. I sent the email over, he responded. I asked him 2 additional questions, he responded, and what I'd like to ask the board's permission to do is to forward my question and the 2 responses from the architect that yes, shoring is required and a little bit more description of what he's thinking about as far as shoring in the plan over to the 2 bidders and give them 2 weeks to come back with a best and final bid. Because I know each one of them had questions during the bid process on the shoring, so I just want to go this extra level to make sure.
So
everybody's-
one said it didn't need the shoring, the other said it did, and so you let.
No, one of them said it's an alternative to be in there, which means in their mind, it could be yes or no. The other one came back emphatically said, yeah, it's gotta be there, and that's why I put the difference in that, being a $25,000 to $30,000 number. I really wanted to get from the architect, okay, do we need to do it or not? So we're not looking at it as a maybe you're doing it, it's like we either do it or we don't, and he's saying we do it, it's gotta happen. So. And there's more detail in the description from the architect than they had when they were preparing this. That's why I want to send them those emails.
Yeah. Give them 2 weeks.
Give them 2 weeks.
And then it's
Triple construction.
Yeah, right.
No, give them 2 weeks and then they come back. And fortunately, I'm not expecting the price to go down, so.
Right.
I appreciate that. I'll send that out today. Thank you.
Rebecca's not here. Rebecca wants to know in public too, so I'll open it up, to public comment. Must be somebody out there wants to say something. Vicky?
We have 2 campers on Green Mountain Road now that have put up mailboxes. One before Randy's with the yurt in the back. And the other one that has made a huge gigantic mess. And I don't know what's happening with those. Something's gotta be done, because there's no water or sewer there.
Okay.
And
Can
it's just,
mention that to Rebecca. when she
it's a
comes in.
huge, I mean, Vicky probably drives by it every day. And when we came home from, I think, planning board the other night, we saw the guy with the yurt in the back and he had a little fire going and he's obviously living there again, but there's a mailbox now. And I have written to the postmaster general to find out where they're getting their addresses from to get a mailbox. And I haven't had a reply yet.
Yeah, the other one also was told to get rid of the third camper they put there. And we were told that he has. And all he's done is demolish everything on top of the frame, save the trailer, and I don't know where all that crap went, but I assume it's somewhere on the property now in a pile. And the place is just demolished and they've got stuff blowing out into the street. So,
Yeah, it's a big mess.
Can we revisit that now?
Did you say both places have a mailbox?
Yes,
two
yes,
now, yeah.
yeah, the one right before Randy's,
Right,
and then there's one after Randy's, 9.
okay, I didn't know there's a mailbox, right.
But I think the big thing is we'd like to know how these people are getting permits without a water or septic system.
Well, we'll find out. Oh, Rebecca?
Good morning. Is it my turn?
Sure.
Well, I'll take the hot seat then.
Okay.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry I didn't come right in, my phone was still off.
You're always welcome to come in and we're not in non-public, we can just come in and wait then.
I could have, but I thought I could boot up my computer so it was hot and ready. Okay,
Just brought up, Vicky, you want to ask Rebecca about the campus?
Yeah, we have, the 2 campers on Green Mountain Road. There's one right before Randy's mailbox. And it has the mailbox now out front. And the guy's living in it, the guy with the yurt.
okay,
And then the one that you've been dealing with, it's a little bit down the road further.
Way.
okay.
And he has demolished one of the took one trailer out, demolished another one.
No, you didn't take one out. You just demolished the one,
Well,
so that now there are only 2.
No, there's one there, the red drivable one in the back now. You don't. pay
It's,
much.
it's 2
Okay,
arguments.
okay, so what's the question?
The question is.
I mean, you're giving me a status report of what's going on. and-
They got 2 mailboxes, they got no water, no septic system. What are they doing with them?
Well, the mailboxes, people can buy a mailbox and sit it out by the road if they want. There's no law that says they can't do that. I had a neighbor in New Hampshire that did that for 30 years without ever getting an official address because he liked the idea of having a mailbox at the end of his driveway. If he doesn't have an official 911 number or she doesn't have official 911 number, they shouldn't put a number on the mailbox. But it's not part of zoning to tell someone that they can't go and buy themselves a pretty mailbox and put it there at the end of their road.
But
So
is this letting them declare residency in our town?
they're not declaring
Excuse me, I
residency.
can speak to that. The woman from the post office came in a couple weeks ago and she works closely with our assessor to identify who has deliverable mailboxes. Places can still have 911 numbers. Those people were in last Friday. The state was in. So you can have a 911 for a lot with, if it has a structure or so that when the fire department's called, they know where to go. Fire and police need to respond. So there's a 911 numbering system. If it has a postal that's valid, that's separate, and the post office is not going to deliver to the, at least one that I'm aware of. And so Mr. Hines is working pretty closely with them so that they know. So the post office does call here to understand what is and isn't deliverable.
We do have people who've done workarounds in the past. I was just talking to someone. I looked at their property card and 2 years ago, there was no address on it. And the application came in with an address on it. So I looked it up and it was on the property card and I spoke to them. I said, where'd you get this address? They said, oh, I don't know. I think we called the fire department. So we can't prevent people from doing some kind of bizarre workaround to get a address number that
process
they
is more
think.
formalized now. The
But
fire
we're
department
trying to
is-
figure that out, and this is what happened many, many years ago when 911 was established. The importance of the 911 address, as opposed to just saying, well, I think I'm at 109, whatever, was because it was an address that public safety could get to. So it's important that it fit with the state 911, and it's important that it go with the location on the property, which is why Mr. Hines and I have established that we can issue a driveway permit, but we won't issue a 911 number unless the application with the driveway permit or a subsequent building permit shows the location on the property of the structure, which is what the 911 people would need to get to. The 911 people don't need to get to the end of the dirt driveway. They need to know where they're going to provide aid.
But
So-
are RVs considered a structure? I don't believe they are, so
No,
why would they be giving out 911 numbers? to
Well, they're
replace
not.
No structure.
we're not. Yeah, we're
Well,
not.
I would like to formally request that the selectmen go and take a look at both of those properties.
It's amazing the mess that has been made in 1 year. 1 calendar year since they went in. It's disgusting.
Well, I think that we need, I mean, you're making a appeal to the board, but I will state that important as our regulations are for getting people permits to camp in their RVs and put up structures, whether they be yurts or sheds or, 5,000 square foot houses, that we're not here to lecture people on how to use their property. And I'll get off my soapbox in 30 seconds, but if you're upset because you think someone's yard is messy, they may be upset because they think your house is ugly. And let's just get off that high horse.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I
You
don't
have a
agree with
junkyard
that at all.
ordinance in this
Yes,
state?
the junkyard
So
ordinance is very
there
clear.
An ordinance that does address some of that.
It doesn't- it-
100% we don't touch it.
It does not address private property where people are messy. It just does not. And enough said.
Well, I
I
would still
disagree.
like you to go and
I
take a look.
disagree with that interpretation.
John?
Hi, John Davis. Do we have, the board or Rebecca even, do we have a number of how many of these campers and sheds and all these things are popping up? I mean, is it
No.
2, is it 20? I
No,
see,
it's-
I see a number of them. And what I don't understand is how, maybe I'm getting in the game late. I don't know how it creeps in like that, to that scope. But on the far end, on the 153 end of Townhouse Road comes to mind, that little flat brown log-sided cabin. There's a camper there, now there's another camper there, now there's a 3-season room on one camper and one on the other camper. And you come by in the weekends in the summer and there's 5 or 6 pickup trucks there, all out of state plates. I'm assuming we have one dump permit, one sticker to utilize all the trash from the weekend at the transfer station. So how do we get, and then there's countless, there's another dozen or so that I've seen out on the road. So how do we get to this point when we have these things in place that are, these ordinances that, we have to have a building permit and all this other stuff? How do these keep popping up? How do you guys why do they have to deal with that? In a camper, now we tore it down and there's a yurt and a fire and a campfire and a chicken coop and all this other stuff. It's crazy. How do we get in so deep?
Well, I would say, do you gentlemen want to answer, ladies, gentlemen want to answer, or should I respond with what I've been doing?
Well, you can respond.
Okay, so I've been in this job for 16 years. And when I first started out, first of all, there were very few RVs in town. And second of all, there were virtually none that got permits for their use. And over those 16 years, we've seen an increased use in seasonal use of RVs. And we've also seen an increase in people getting permits to do that. And one of the things that I have worked very hard at is to educate the public that it's not that big a deal to get a permit for your RV so that we know that it's there, we know that it's properly within setbacks, we can check on it if we need to. And I've had a pretty good rate of return. I can't always get everyone, because if someone puts an RV on the back of their property way off in the middle of nowhere, way up a holler, as my sister would say in West Virginia, then I don't know it. But I'm more than happy if someone says, do you know there's an RV out there? To go out, visit the folks, or send them a letter and say, do you know you need a permit for your RV? And the rate of return on those letters that have gone out, those what's up letters to people, did you know that, you're supposed to have a permit for your RV on your property? Rate of return on that has been very, very good. Same with, you say, the cabins or the sheds or whatever, all small structures, everything in town requires a permit. And I've felt that I've done a pretty good job on catching up on the ones that are, if you divide the people into percentages, there's those that love getting permits, and they call me up and they want to.
So, all right, so I understand all that.
So a lot of them out there have permits.
Okay, so with all that said, the cabin down on the far end of Townhouse Road, what's their status? Do they-
Which I'm not sure which cabin you mean.
Okay, so it's been there for 2 years. They did all the remodeling last year. They've been there all last summer, so you're not aware of
End
that.
of Tom House.
Yeah,
It's 50 or
she was
so.
notified of that,
Okay,
Which,
just above the library.
just above the library.
and
the
they put a
opposite
deck,
side.
they put a deck on it, and they get,
There's a
yep,
deck
yep,
that's not finished.
absolutely. I notified them in the fall.
Okay, so
And
what's the
they-
status of that right now? If that was they were notified a year
Well,
ago.
first of all, they're up for re-notification.
So so when we notice and then we renotice and we renotice, what's, I don't think the success rate is there personally, right? I'm thinking of, so we send a notice and we get 30 days and 30 days and 30 days and 30 days, and guess what? Then it's fall again, and we re-up the following year. I'm concerned with civic pride, the neighborhood, the property valuation, all that stuff comes into play.
Okay, so I sent them a notice, but the RVs are not in use.
They are all summer.
Right, but at the point when I was alerted to it, they were not in use.
Which ones?
So they were being stored. I have subsequently sent them a notice that they need building permit for the deck that is being built on the cabin. And I am about to send out my spring letters to all the violations that have been noted over the winter, and that includes the fact that there's not only 2 RVs on their property, and they're only going to be allowed to get a seasonal use permit for one, but they never got a permit for the structure that is attached to it. I guess I would say that the only excuse is that I work part-time,
Okay.
and I do the best I can to get everything done that I can.
I have a comment.
What?
So the planning board brought new regulations regarding RVs to the town to consign. So the town is proactively doing something to change the status. And with those new regulations in place, I think the zoning enforcement officer needs a chance to go forward and see what this summer brings, because changes can't happen overnight. And so by having the new regulations, there's different expectations for the trailers and how those properties get maintained. So I think we're spending a lot of time talking about the past. And I think I would recommend that the board give the planning board's recommendations a chance to get enacted and see if progress has been made.
And also several months ago, we decided that we were gonna start finding people for $2.75 a day. So.
Has anybody been charged yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Most people get that letter that is sent to.
I would like to say that I had a little something to do with some of the ordinances that were adjusted this year.
The $2.75 a day.
And I didn't see much that's gonna totally affect what's going on now. The big adjustment this year was that there'll be a cutoff date in the winters when no one can be in their camper. And that was by your own admission, Rebecca, something that was never done anyway. People weren't going out and living in the winter, so
Excuse me? People weren't what?
the big thing, the big ticket item this year that was settled in planning in an abatement was that campers were no longer gonna be able to
Right.
have a permit for the winters.
Right.
But by your own admission, in those meetings, you said that we didn't have a problem with people out there in the winters. Nobody was doing it.
Well, we didn't have much of a problem because with snow on the ground, you could tell whether someone was using an RV or not.
So
Generally,
basically, what I'm saying is, don't hold your breath if you're relying on the new ordinances
But
to
the
solve
people
this
that are in
problem.
violation, the ones that are on this list, the selectmen have decided that, yes, we're gonna start finding these people.
I think that is a difference.
Is there monetary language in there, Lenny, that says, hey, you're a violator, hey, you're John Davis, you have 3 campers and all this other stuff, where's your sewage
It's in
going?
the zoning ordinance and
Right,
it's in the
so it's
state
like, okay,
policy.
so it's like,
Rebecca
okay,
sends them a note, says it's $275 a day.
Yeah. is that a certified note or is that
You
just,
send them-
Yes,
okay?
so here's the process.
And do we actually, will we actually follow through and collect that money so
Well,
that
that will
it's?
be up to the
Well,
Board of
that's up to the-
Selectmen.
That's up to the selectmen.
So
I
the-
strongly suggest that we
If we don't collect it, there's a lien that goes on the property.
The process is that I send someone a notice that they're in violation. I give them a little time, probably 30 days to clean up their act. I send them another letter. If I don't get a response from that, I send them a notice of violation by certified mail and first-class mail, and I copy that to the Board of Selectmen for them to start levying fines. I have been doing that for quite a while,
okay.
but
So
the
there's
Board of
that's
Selectmen
60
has
days.
not had the mechanism in place for fining.
Okay, so they have 60 days, basically. Is your first notice letter certified or just
No.
USPS? So what if we did the first mailing certified, so they don't say, I never
Yeah,
got
we're
it?
really getting into the weeds here.
Yeah,
So,
But
I was gonna
I'm,
say-
I'm just saying,
I know,
I would
right?
like to see it cleaned up. I don't understand how we got in so deep. I'll be
Right.
done.
We're working
Okay,
on
we
it.
get the point. Thank you, Lenny, very much.
Okay. Your report.
Yes,
I still see you're on one page, and now the page is full.
yeah, page is pretty tight, although I'm feeling hopeful about a bunch of the stuff. There's a couple of the ones that went over to the planning board that may get straightened out within the next month or so. When I talk about April letters going out, I generally start fresh in the spring with a round of letters to situations that have been difficult to monitor in the winter due to frozen wetlands or snow cover or whatever. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get some more of these off. But as you can see, there are a bunch of properties that I'm tracking on the property activity log that are the responsibility of the planning board. And there's not really any way that I can move them along if they are in the process of applying to the planning board. The planning board has looked at the application, said it's incomplete, sent the applicant away, blah, blah, blah. So, there's no way I can get someone to do a better site plan
I know
application.
all about the planning board.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah. So there you go. We're waiting for a decent site plan application from someone who's been in front of the board 3 times and still doesn't know what to do. And these are people that, are not necessarily wanting to hire a surveyor or an attorney or whatever to do it. So those are still holding us up. I've got 2 or 3 permits actually that are waiting for drawing sketches. I mean, these people, I say, you need a drawing before you're putting the stuff on the location, and then I say you need a, all right. So we have 2 options. I generally try to be generous and wait with an application as an incomplete application, waiting for the person who says, oh, I'm going to get up next weekend and I'll do a drawing and measurement and do it. And then I would mark the application as complete, do the site visit, and then issue the application. Or I could get nasty and say 30 days have gone and I don't have a complete application. I'm just going to send it back. I've preferred to do the first, which is that the person is trying to get the their paperwork in, they just haven't, and, you know, their 30 days goes by a little faster than we all realize.
The negative side of that is 30 days becomes 30 days, becomes 30 days, becomes 30 days, which means it's an additional workload on you to manage it. If it's
Well,
sitting
it's-
there waiting to happen.
It's in a file labeled waiting for completion, and it's a line on a piece of paper. It's not really taking me that much time. It's not like a violation. It's not something I'm tracking.
Alright.
You know, if someone has submitted an application and it's not complete, and I've called them or sent them an email saying, you need to send me a sketch of where you're putting the shed on the property and where the driveway entrance is or whatever. I haven't gone out on a site visit yet because I don't have enough information. It's not really burdening me. It's just, you know, it's trailing along on our sheet. But
And they haven't done anything yet, right?
no, they haven't done anything. No,
Right, so
they're
it's just-
applying for a permit. It's
Right.
not like something that somebody has done and I'm tracking them afterwards. So, and again, you know, our permits are picking up. We had 6 or 7 this last month.
I got a question on 306 Pine River Road, date shot.
Oh, yeah.
Why is it going on the planning board? The site plan?
Well, the building is grandfathered. The building itself is grandfathered, but the use went through without ever getting a site plan.
Oh, it did.
And I made the call, and again, you know, someone can question my decision on this. I made the call that although the building was grandfathered and he could put the building back up where it was, the burn, that in fact, he needed a site plan for that non-residential use there, because the project started after zoning, but without ever getting a site plan approval. So it sort of fell between the cracks in that respect. And we have, you know, we have a bunch of things like that happen. I mean, you know, zoning came in 2000 and I came here in 2006. So, you know, sometimes there are things that, you know, I'm not going to question what my predecessors did. I just go, something like this, there's not really any reason why they shouldn't get a site plan approval. You know, it's far enough back from the
I'm
road
just
and all
wondering
that.
why it went planning board.
Yeah. But I don't think they've applied to the planning board yet. I mean, you haven't seen it.
I haven't
No,
seen
no, no. No.
So you expect things to get a little busier?
They always do.
Yeah.
Although they haven't picked up particularly yet. We shall see. They picked up. We had a lot going on during COVID, a lot more primary structure stuff and renovations to existing primary structures, as opposed to, you know, all the little sheds and barns and carports stuff. And we'll just see how that goes. Or maybe we've reached a saturation point with everyone who wanted a little additional structure having it. I don't know.
There's
We'll
one on
see.
here that I don't see is Clough Road. The last property on the left before you enter the state forest, there's 3 campers on that property now.
Yeah, I know the property. We visited it in the fall. I think the third one may be new. I know I visited in the fall. None of those properties, yeah, there are 3 properties along there with
Yeah,
active
yeah.
campers. And I know the one nearest, well, it's not Wilkinson Swamp, but it's whatever, nearest the intersection there, has always been very reliable about getting its permits and actually has a well and a septic system and stuff like that. I think they're planning on someday building a house. They've been very good about getting their permits. The one further down, one of them actually, when I followed up on them, they actually hadn't used that RV all that season. I'll check the one furthest down and see what is up.
Yeah, nobody was at that next to last one.
Yeah.
In fact, it's
So-
covered up now, so.
I mean, from a you know, it's an interesting mathematical challenge. If you're allowed 2 for storage and you get a seasonal use permit for the 3rd, then you can have 3 RVs on your property. But then when you close up that seasonal use one for the winter, all of a sudden you have 3 for storage. And so I'm not sure how you resolve the math issue there. But it's possible sometimes we see people, the second RV on their property is actually, they're using it as a storage container of some sort, and provided they've removed the kitchen and or bathroom facilities to it, it's no longer an RV. It can be, may not look the same as a Rubbermaid shed that you buy from Lowe's, but it's basically somebody's way to store their stuff. So we do have a couple of those around town that no longer function as RVs, but are being used as storage sheds. And as I said, provided they can't function as RVs, provided they don't have, by our definition, RVs has kitchen.
Do we verify that they don't have a bathroom and a?
Yeah, I verify that it's not, that it can't work as an RV. And that doesn't have to do with the mobility. It has to do whether it actually has what needs to be in there to support someone using it as a seasonal camper.
And these campers that are popping up all over the place without seasonal approval and the well and the septic, like the first party there in that row of 3.
Well, they don't need a well and a septic
Right,
to get a
right,
seasonal use permit.
Do we verify where the sewer goes or anything like that?
Yeah, that was one of the changes that was made in our application forms. In fact, I just got one today.
I think that last statement too is debatable, is being debated right now.
Well, it is debatable, but according to regulations, an in-ground septic system is not required for a seasonal use permit. Verification of what is happening with the septic has been added to our application form. So there's a way to track that. And I've gotten 2 so far this season. One is on a residential property that has a septic system, so that's what they're using. And someone else is using I can't remember what they're called. It's not a tipping service. But they're taking it somewhere else, to one of the vendors in the state that will empty. So, and that can be easily tracked. I mean, they're required on the new application form. And that was a new application form that went in first week of January this year, in order to reflect the possibility of what the regulation, the specifics of what the planning board approved. But in fact, there was no reason why we couldn't just put that on the form anyway, in terms of compliance with the health ordinance. That we've always said that they have to follow the health ordinance. So
I don't see how they can without putting in a well and stuff.
Okay.
So Rebecca, different than the subject we're on right here, back to the Waddington case.
Yep.
The resident on Libby Road, Leo Racine, forwarded me a copy of a letter that or an email he received from the Solid Waste Management Bureau about their wanting to work with the town in a site visit follow-up to his property. Are we doing it? I mean, you just got this, I think.
yeah, I've already done my site visit
What
follow-up.
coordination took place with the state?
I didn't know I was supposed to coordinate with the state.
You weren't. You
And
didn't have this.
Right.
When you did your site visit.
right,
What I'm asking is, what's the intent to follow up on? I was asked, what's the intent to follow up on this?
I'm not sure what it is that the state wants
They want a coordinating a visit with the town.
based on, Mr.
Until
Racine.
somebody calls, I don't know.
okay.
So if it's not in your bailiwick, then I think it's in the selectmen's
I
bailiwick.
don't think it is. Mr. Hines and I did a site visit, and it was my conclusion that they had done everything necessary to meet my requirements in terms of being removed from our junkyard list. Mr. Waddington has done an incredible amount of cleanup to the place. He's no longer bringing stuff onto the property and depositing it there. He has a certain number of storage sheds or capability or whatever. And his, for the public, he has a Wakefield disposal. He is a waste business. And so he has stuff that he picks up, and it may stay in the truck till he takes it somewhere else.
That's good.
And that's fine, and he's got stuff on his property that, you know, that we all poured. He's got a nice stack of bluestone, he's got a bunch of tin roofing that you put over firewood. But you know, all the stuff that I saw there 2 years ago, not only trashy stuff, but you know, dead RVs and old motors and, you know, all sorts of stuff like that, that really falls not just within the technical idea of a junkyard, but what we imagine a junkyard to be, which is, you know, very much automotive based as opposed to, you know, just messy. Has done a remarkable amount of cleanup. So I, you know, we signed
Good.
off on
I'm
it.
good, I'm good.
Yeah,
So from the standpoint of follow-up, can we allow to just call these guys and find out what they might have been expecting in the follow-up for the town?
I'm happy to send them a copy or any, or you guys.
I'll give them a call.
This
Yeah,
is
you
a
can
phone
send
call,
on to them
but
the
I think
letter.
Maybe something closed out as a result of what they did.
Okay,
Yeah, I copied you and you on the letter that I sent to Mr. Waddington.
so I will
And so
reach out to Laurel
That
and,
can go out to her. Now,
Yeah.
if they have some other level of state level concern, you know, I would just recommend that if they want to do that, they, you know, coordinate with Mr. Waddington. He prefers to be notified ahead if someone's coming on his property.
The way I interpreted that was the state would want to get involved if he was storing stuff, but he said he's cleaned that all up.
Yeah, he's not storing stuff. I mean,
Because
he's,
he's registered to haul, he's just not,
right.
But I just want to close the loop, so they close their end of it, they're not
Okay.
expecting us to
but
call.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the way I interpreted it, was if he was not.
yeah, I'll call her and forward Rebecca's letter.
Second item, Rebecca, and again, is a result of the whole thing on Waddington. I had never seen this before, but the town apparently has a class 6 road policy dated September of 2004. And one of the requirements on any class 6 road is prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall produce evidence that notice of limits of the town's responsibility and liability has been filed and recorded with the registry of deeds. What's our follow-up process for that?
Well, this, yeah, the class 6 road policy applies to class 6 roads all over the town. The only class 6 roads in town that are allowed to have building permits issued on is Libby Road, without they go to the ZBA for a variance.
Which was part of that original ordinance.
Right, it was part of the original ordinance because I believe that what's referred to as the Hertel subdivision, but actually Hertel's had a,
And I understand,
Not
I'm talking about all the other properties that have houses on them, that are on the class 6 roads. How are we
Which-
following up to make sure?
now, I,
No further up Liberty Road, there's 2 more houses up there?
right, and my guess is that they went in, I mean, I can look into this further. My guess is that they went in because, before I became zoning
And I
officer.
agree with that.
So
What I
I
wanna know is what's the
don't-
process today?
The process today is, and I'm working with someone, if you've gone up Libby Road to the point where you can't go any farther, there's a really big rock in the road and you can't get through to the other end to Townhouse, not Townhouse, Old Town Road. And that's the last sort of developable lot along there before you really can't get through and you have to come through the other end. And that gentleman has put in a driveway and he wants to put in a house. And there's nothing that precludes me issuing a driveway permit. Someone might be using it for a camper or whatever. And again, that's not precluded in the class 6 road ordinance either. So I have told him that his process is he needs to get his building permit application to me in time for me to present it to your board and to the planning board. And once those 2 agencies sign off on it, somebody is responsible for recording that at the registry of deeds.
Actually, this is prior to issuance of any permits.
Right,
So-
right, but that would be after the planning board and the board of selectmen, assuming they do, sign off on the applicant's appropriateness for building there, that it's not going to cause premature and widespread development, I believe is the language that prohibits building on class 6 roads. That assuming that they think that that will not be a problem, then that would be recorded. And again, I assume that it would be the planning board or the board of selectmen that would record that with the registry because it's their decision. It's not my decision I'm waiting for the planning board and the board of selectmen jointly to make a decision as to the appropriateness of Mr. X building a house way down on Libby Road. Once they make that decision and the decision is recorded, then I can issue the permit.
Okay, so in your 16 years, have we ever run across this? Where you had to look at one of these and come up with a process? Review it?
Well, there's only those 6 or 7 lots on Libby Road that are relevant. The only other class 6 one I remember is someone who came in on, what is it? East Range, West Range, beyond Lakeview. Anyway, they came to the ZBA for variance to allow building on a class 6 road and they were denied. And that's the only other one that I remember. So, I mean, I'd have to go and dig, you know, I can't, you know, I
No,
don't.
that's good. I'm just asking
mention
generally. I haven't heard
anything
of-
recent. I mean, I do know, for instance, you go out Libby Road on the right, beyond, right across from Leo's driveway is where the class 6 road starts, beyond the lady with the farmhouse there. And there's a pair of lots there that the gentleman who owns them purchased them 10 years ago or something. He's been putting RVs on them. But he's never applied for any further development. So, and
So are we saying that RV is not considered building for purposes of a class 6 road?
I don't consider an RV a building. No, I don't consider an RV a building. RVs are innately movable. I think we could get into a gray area there where if someone was putting an RV on those lots on Libby Road and they wanted to get a permit to put a porch, you know, the way they do, that would trigger something. But as long as they are registered and truly mobile, even if they close them up over the winter, then that's a camping use. I would interpret that as a reasonable use.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yeah. And you never heard of the class 6 road policy?
Not until I got presented with this thing a few weeks ago.
Oh.
I've never read it,
Okay,
and it's not posted on the town website, so it's like, I just wonder how many people even know it exists.
well, all the people on Libby Road do, because I've been
Yes.
provided copies of, you know, during COVID, when there was such a boom, I sent a copy of this out via email probably every couple of weeks to people that were looking at the property along there to purchase.
Is that an ordinance you want updated?
It's a policy, it's not an ordinance, it's a road,
Policy,
it's a policy.
because I
As a
recall
policy, we
someone
can update it,
a
yeah.
couple weeks ago said that the distances weren't correct. I'm looking to list them.
Yeah, no, we need to
That,
address it.
yeah, some of the roads actually aren't class 6 anymore.
I think if you're gonna update it, including the details of the roads themselves, I'd like to be there just since I've been, you know, working with the roads and actually got a couple of the maps updated based on what the policy said, so that it was clear, they're just tax maps. But it is nice to have an indication of that. As a policy, I believe you can update it by just having a public hearing as opposed to an ordinance which has to go to the town. So, which is why
Yeah, you could have.
I noticed that,
Every 18 years.
It's time.
Yeah. And I haven't had a chance to check all the class 6 roads to see if they had sign.
right, and I brought that up
Yeah.
with Lenny at the planning board meeting that, I mean, there are actually, you know, only that many places, and a good many of them, I mean, when you go up Old Pound Road and turn left, the class 6 road starts just past the first couple of driveways. And it's not even navigable. I mean, you know, it's a rut. And so, yes, there's a sign there, but you know, no one's gonna go up that, as opposed to down here on High Watch where it hits Route
Are you
25.
sure that's where it starts? I thought it started right at the inside, both ways, Hobbs Road and Libby Road. I think
Well,
those
it says-
houses are on class 6 road because the plow turns around right at the inside.
Libby Road from Linda Fairchild, that's the lady down by Leo's, to Old Pound Road. Yeah, so it would technically go right to the intersection. But I think that, I don't know about the one that's on the, as you head up Libby, I don't know about the one that's on the left, but that's got frontage on Old Pound anyway, because it's on the corner. And the other ones are, I think, part of that old subdivision. So they are buildable under under the guidelines of the old subdivision. And I did find, I don't have it with me, but I actually did go find in the planning board stuff.
Yeah, but we
A bunch
don't-
of stuff
we
about-
don't maintain that. Town does not maintain from that inside.
That's the main thing that, I mean, besides the, you know, the premature development line of class 6 roads. And have any of you read Hard Road to Travel?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you guys.
yeah, okay. I mean, because that's really one of the best resources for understanding how roads are done. But, what was I gonna say? Went right out. Sorry.
Okay. I can relate.
So good.
You're a child.
Not
compared-
me.
Compared to this brain.
What's that? Yeah, so is that non-public?
I think
Was
we're
a discussion with hiring part-time advisors.
I think because we're talking about
Yeah,
employee hire.
employee
I think that would be,
I think it's under a
It's a
promotion.
reputational risk if I'm not hiring an employee.
It's one of the non-publics, is hiring employees.
Yeah, just
I
miss
mean, it's-
promotion compensation.
We
and then-
just did one.
I understand. I understand. Oh, good.
Okay. Does anybody have anything? Do you have anything more after that if we went non-public? and it's closed?
I do have a question,
Okay.
and I thought it would have been covered actually in the Police Chief Duchesne's update. The scuttlebutt on Facebook with the canine unit and the cemetery.
We just had a discussion on that.
I was not here, right? It was not, Paul, we were here, did you hear anything?
Do you want us to
I-
answer? Or do you
I don't
want-
care who answers it, I was just curious because it was a major
And
point of topic.
I'll say one thing, what's on Facebook didn't happen that way.
I understand that, and that's why
Okay.
I'm bringing it up here because of clarification. I don't go by anything just on Facebook. That's why I figured it would be
We had a
clarified.
clarification.
Good point.
John, you want to talk? Joe?
Let me tell them what happened and then I'll.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing it up too. So what ended up happening was, I took Ken and Pharaoh up to the cemetery town property up there and just did a quick track through there. What was put up on the Facebook posting is something about me spraying stuff all over the place. That is not the case. What I explained to the woman that went up there is that there was human odor gone through, which while we've been sitting here, we have been spreading human odor. That's what the dog tracks. We don't spray anything. I have nothing to spray. There's no tricks of the trade. So the dog tracks just the way dogs tracked for millions of years, is they go off of an odor. So if you walk through an area, he finds a starting point and then he follows your scent trail wherever you walk. Because as we just sit here, we're shedding skin and stuff like that all the time. That's the odor that he picks up. So there was nothing sprayed. There was nothing done to any gravestones. We didn't walk on any grave sites or anything like that. The trail happened to go by where this woman's family plot is. And I explained that to her that, the trail had gone up there, but when you show up and you need to do whatever you need to do, take your time. We're not in a rush. I was planning on letting that scent trail set up for at least 30 minutes. And my decoy that went and laid the track, he had just left. So I had at least 30 minutes. And if she needed to take more time, that's fine too. She was gonna be there for a couple hours. I would have just left. That was never expressed to me. So all we ended up doing was just taking the dog and following along the path to the decoy at the end, played a little game of tug with him, made it real fun, right back in the cruiser, we were gone. But I did explain to her when she first showed up, because we were parked right at the entrance, just after you get past where those huge granite pillars are, where the sign says Woodland Cemetery, we were parked right there. I made it clear to her, we're just doing a training thing, so I didn't want her to panic or think that there's some major police activity going on. It's just training, take your time. I have no issue with that. And that's how it was left. What was put on Facebook was mostly inaccurate, just based on probably a lack of understanding of how the canine works, which is fine. But then the 50 or 60 comments after that of people just adding to their own story, that's what made it worse. There were people, so I can assure you that the time that I was up there, it was me, my decoy, and the dog. And then she showed up by herself, was there for a couple minutes and left. At no point did anybody else that commented on that show up while we were there. So I can assure you that the fact that we sprayed things or that we trampled all over gravestones and stuff like that, none of that happened. I have respect for the dead. It was brought up that, you know, a bunch of the people that are up there are, you know, dead soldiers and stuff. I'm a veteran myself. I'm obviously not going to trample on my brothers and sisters in arms the same way. It was just a matter of the track went by the cemetery. In the common area, there's a roadway that goes right through where the 4 pillars are for the burials. That's where we went through. It's that simple. And I'm very open that if anybody has any questions about what the canine does, how he does it, how we track, how we train, I'm an open book. We're here, I'm here a minimum of 40 hours a week. I'm very approachable. I'm more than willing to talk to anybody about how the canine works. So it's your dog. You guys should know how it works.
Just wanted to bring it out to the public so that those on Zoom can hear the explanation. And just make it public because it does get crazy. I mean, I personally thought that it had to be a very different scenario because I understand how Facebook blows things up. But it is important that it is public on Zoom in the notes. Anybody interested can go back and say, oh, okay. I
Absolutely.
appreciate the explanation, I do.
Anytime.
I just figured, I mean, I thought you would have just in your update and say, oh yeah, by the way, blah, blah.
No, well, I have that as well, but I would like to speak,
Okay.
I would like to speak on this. I'm not crying, it's out. You guys don't scare me that much. No, I will say, as far as this incident goes, if there is any heat to come out of this or fallback, which there absolutely should not be, that should come on to me, because I'm the one that instructed Sean to train at the cemetery. The reason I did this is because I was a former canine handler myself. 2006 is when I started. It was impressed upon us then, you need to train your dogs in cemeteries. People run from the police, they hide in cemeteries, they hide drugs in cemeteries. We've had, I can't even tell you how many complaints of suspicious and illicit behavior up at that cemetery in particular. Now, just so you have a little bit of understanding how a dog works, I don't know how many of you dog lovers know that much about them, but any dog has what they call environmental issues. Some can be minor, some are big, and what that means is things out in the environment. It could be that giant tank, it could be a rock, it could be a tree, anything. A dog, if it's not exposed to it, can shy away from it, it can back away from it. You bring a dog that's never been on a linoleum floor, bring him in here and watch what he does. All 4 is gonna go up, just like that, until you acclimate that dog. I've seen police dogs, when it starts to get dark, shadows start to get cast, they run back to their cruiser, because they're afraid of the shadows or whatever. So you can only imagine if you have a dog that's never been exposed to a cemetery, and he has to chase somebody through a cemetery, he's got all these monuments, all these shadows, the scent's going everywhere. It's paramount to train in the cemetery. So that's the reason we do it. That was under my direction, and I will continue to direct him to train in areas that we feel necessary. I'm 100% satisfied at the fact that I know Sergeant Wells did nothing disrespectful, nothing of that sort. We minimize the impact as much as possible. So that's just what I wanted to share on that. That if there is any fallback, if people don't agree with it, that needs to come back on you, not Sergeant Welch.
Awesome.
Yeah, maybe we could patrol the cemetery more often. There has been a lot of things going on up there.
Absolutely, that we do patrol, but yeah, absolutely, we certainly can.
And also, coming spring, more people do visit. Be nice if you would take that into consideration
Sure.
before you go up there.
Well, obviously, Linda, if we pull up there and there's people visiting relatives and stuff like that, we're not gonna conduct it, right? I mean, we do have sense, we're not gonna.
But like I'm thinking around Memorial Weekend, there would be no plans to do anything like that. I would hope,
Okay,
okay?
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Oh, and again, who is the mirror for on the road, top of Townhouse Road? That big round,
It's for the library.
Oh,
So you can
really?
see, yeah.
so you can look into the library parking lot?
We
No.
have the library parking lot.
It allows you,
The
someone,
bracket broke over the winter because of the wind.
Oh,
It's already.
so
already a
does it
project
work
to
the
fix
way it's set up?
No, but there's a project, there's already a volunteer group that is working to re-hang it, but we have to build a new bracket.
Oh, okay.
It's there so you can look at your hair. if you want.
Yes, must be. I was gonna say it's kind of useless for where it is, but, okay, understood.
They-
There's a few things that you didn't go over that are on the agenda. Is that on purpose or,
Like what?
well, oil permit?
Yes, I
Yeah, we
have,
went-
They did.
we went over, I mentioned that I
Vicky's doing
do
a work session with Audrey.
with Audrey.
For,
You get a permit.
Or update permit for oil, the used oil,
The state requires a
the
permit.
permit for the town to use
Yeah.
oil.
right,
Okay. I know you hit on the current use, solar exemption. Deputy fire warden appointment. Is the town thinking of putting in a deputy fire warden as well?
We did. He appointed her.
We had them.
There's like, she made maybe five deputies. Or anyway,
All right.
they
What
teach
are
the
the-
one and I think he appointed up to 6 deputies, I think, I'm not sure. Don't quote me on the number.
I think they usually post them on the fire.
Yeah,
What do they do? Is,
they give out permits,
so that's basically what their
yeah,
position
that's
is.
basically what they
Giving
do.
out permits, so none of the legal part of being a fire warden is involved in these jobs.
They're deputy wardens. JT is the warden,
Thank you.
and the others are deputies. They give out permits. It's about, I don't know what else he can have.
Watch fire truck.
Yeah.
Well, I wondered, we have cases in planning that should have a fire warden or deputy fire warden there to listen to these commercial things that are going on and give us their point of view on the laws. that
So they
pertain to
can
them.
go out, somebody's burning, JT can't get there, they can go out and check an illegal burn. Or whatever. So he has all the authority.
Is it, just curiously, is it possible, since fire warden has to sign off on commercial buildings and plans,
That wouldn't be the warden, that would be the chief.
no, it's a state fire warden who is the chief would have to do,
I think.
or
no, the-
if they're.
I think the wardens just deal with fire, woods.
Okay,
The chief deals with life safety, probably the fire marshal would be the one from the state. Not the warden.
would it be a good idea to give the chief then a heads up on times when we have site plans and that kind of thing coming before the board that are commercial, since they would have knowledge of what the
Yeah,
laws are there.
you probably appreciate the notice if it's, something
Yeah,
required.
I've asked in planning and nobody seems to say, well, nobody just feels obligated to notify the chief. No heads up are given and
Okay. I'll call it. Anything else?
I mean, you've heard me ask about it.
Yeah. We'll take it. I mean, that's the chief and planning boards things.
But it just seems to me it's beneficial for the planning, it's beneficial for the resident who wants to do something and they can get all the laws and specs right there at one source at one time. It's expedient.
See anything else from this?
No, I'm good now. Thank you.
Okay. Sure.
Did you want those or?
You want to go over? 'Em?
That's up to you guys.
Yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
You're right here.
What is statistics? Oh, yeah.
All right, March's statistics, I did get state police. Let's see, calls for service, this is us sheriff's department, not state police, is 293 for the month of March. We made 3 arrests, 69 motor vehicle stops, and there was 1 accident. State police handled 2 calls for service in town and made 8 motor vehicle stops. So that's total 77 stops and 295 calls. Month of March. Any questions?
Oh, it's 10 a day, right? 300.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you ever do it by road, like which roads get the most?
Oh, that might be
Stop.
tough.
Mm.
Yeah, that might be tough. Right now, we can break it down to the town itself as far as the calls for service. You go road by road, you could probably do it, but
Curious.
it'd be difficult. Yeah.
We see it, don't we, Vicky?
Yeah. I am all
I've
for,
also seen them out there.
I'm all for not fixing Green Mountain Road. Just
You
letting
don't want a
them,
brand new paved road.
Yeah, but they're just taking, right?
Right, Bill, now. Yep, we had some pass us yesterday or the day before.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's it. Everyone good? All right.
So nobody's gonna have anything after the budget non-public. We can just close after that. Okay. You make a motion to go into non-public?
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We will close. at that.
With the roads, the class 6 roads, and one of the issues with roads that we have in the town is that people use the tax maps for reference, and those are conceptual. So I just feel like we need to be aware that there are times when we can't depend on the tax maps for making decisions, that we need to look further.
Should we put some kind of disclaimer on the end of the map that basically says this is can't be relied on for?
That's probably worth looking into. Maybe David would like to consult with cartographics and see if there's a standard for that.
Yeah, I wonder if that wouldn't cause a lot of questions.
I'm sure
from
that person would never ask.
taxpayers.
Right.
Every time we hand them out, or I used to say, these are for tax and assessing purposes only.
I
These
don't
are
think it
not-
comes up.
These
on
are
enough-
not a survey of your property.
I
And
don't
most
think,
people understand that when you tell them.
I don't think it comes up enough to do that.
Yeah.
I just think we need to all be aware of it. So when it comes up,
Right. then you tell
we're
them.
all going, don't get blindsided, like the classic road thing. Let's not get blindsided by the fact that, I've been doing all I can for 15 years to get the tax maps accurate in terms of winter roads and classics roads and stuff like that, road closing. But in fact, they are just that, tax maps.
Hold on one sec. We got a motion and a second to come out of non-public. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry to run on and on about roads. And then, as I was just saying, we've got a fair amount of maps out back I'll keep the map collection out there. I'm going through, I'm getting rid of duplicates of old maps that we don't need. But should you be looking for something, it might be back there. Should you be looking for the plans for a fire station, they might be back there. The maps for when 153 or Green Mountain Road, they might be back there. So, yeah, shoot me an email if you think that it might be there.
Okay. We need sealed minutes.
Okay.
No?
Okay.
Okay.
You don't need them.
Okay, so we won't seal the minutes. Anybody make a motion? Somebody,
That's all right.
you wanna make a motion?
To,
Adjourn.
yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Always a pleasure.